You know, if I tell you the extent to which I did not want to talk about the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem and all of the chaos that ensues, you wouldn't believe me. For at this juncture on the 13th of the 5th 2025, you couldn't write this in a book. That you have this billion-dollar sport called, I don't know, let's say Formula One, and it's governed and policed by this Mickey Mouse show of an FIA president. What are we doing here, chat? I desperately don't want to go scorched earth, but this dude leaves me with no option. Season to date, it's been chaos. Career to date, tenure to date, it's been chaos. Every single time that dude says something, he goes and does the exact opposite, the antithesis. He came into power talking about governance, robust, transparency, being open and honest. His tenure has again been the epitome of the antithesis. We've seen none of that, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. All your people have left. You only want yes men and women around you. Shayla and Rao gone and now come back. Wittich gone. What are we doing here, chat? This makes no bloody sense. And then you get the breaking news, courtesy of Andrew Benson at the BBC, saying that things aren't going to get better, chat. They are only going to get worse. He's seeking to do one of these as far as his power and his remit and his scope. And you know what? Maybe it's naive of me. Maybe I should have anticipated this, because if past his prologue, Mohammed Ben Sulayem's been doing this as long as he's been in power now, trying to get reinstated Juan Fernando El Plan Alonso with his Aramco logoed rear wing back onto the podium, Saudi Arabian Grand Prix a couple of years back, saying that we're not rappers, treating the drivers as if they're children and not multi-million-dollar superstars. The GPDA begging Mohammed Ben Sulayem to treat them as if they are human beings and adults. Therefore, Mohammed Ben Sulayem declining that offer. You saw the pictures of that dude celebrating the Bahrain Grand Prix on his Instagram with none other than Prince Andrew and bloody Max Mosley. What are we doing, chat? This is nonsense. And now this dude wants to talk about being open and honest, not bringing the sport into disrepute by dint of colourful language and or expletives. What is he talking about, chat? You can't even make this make sense. It is nonsensical, but apparently common sense in Formula One is none too common, particularly if we're having the conversation under the umbrella heading of Mohammed Ben Sulayem's FIA. And then you get to the litigation issues. High-Tech's Ollie Oakley is suing that dude, taking him to court in real bloody time. They said that the reason why High-Tech can't become the 11th member of the F1 grid is because of financial resources or lack thereof. Oakley said, what are you talking about, chap? Why don't you have a look at our financial statements? This is nonsense. This is F1 baloney. And a court found in Oakley's favour and against the FIA. There is arbitration going on in real time, second phase, because there is financial resources by dint of damages due to Ollie Oakley and High-Tech. Therefore, how about Susie Wolf? What about that, chat? Lest we forget, conflict of interest, mate. What are you on about? Where is the evidence that you intend to investigate this? That's right, you did not have any. And then this dude wants to get up on his pulpit and speaker box and talk about open and honest and transparency. What are we doing, chat? And then most recently we find out that per the guys and girls around him, the yes men, his closest confidants that he instituted with a view to make whole the FIA, that those are still around him, have claimed that he's been abusing his own travel and expenditure policy, by the way, on his private jet, expensing that to none other than the FIA. What would you expect from this chap at this point? And the latest in a litany of indiscretions from Mohammed Ben Sulayem as the FIA president of the regulatory body of the billion-dollar sporting endeavour come franchise that is Formula One, is this. There were 4 members of the audit committee. The audit committee, as its scope and remit, is set fair, looking to tick and tie the behavioural conduct homework of all of the members of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem inclusive of that. Mohammed Ben Sulayem said, you know what? Nah, audit committee, what Audit Committee disbanded, 2 of 4 of them with immediate effect. Richards and Reed were like, what are you doing, chap? This is nonsense. Upstanding bods who were at the FIA. Richards, of course, was one of the lead principals. He was one of the ones championing Mohammed Ben Sulayem, encouraging that dude to run for president of the FIA in 2021 December of. Here's why this matters, chat. Because now Reed, Richards, they're saying, you know what, this is too far now. This dude's looking to run a dictatorship as far as the FIA, and those aren't the principles upon which you ran in the first place. Lest we forget, it was open and honest governance, it was robust policies, it was instituting for the rules in a way which is true and fair across all related parties, in a way that's not inconsistent but consistent. And the FIA, I'd argue, since 2022 has been anything but consistent. Au contraire, mon ami, they've been consistently inconsistent. Lest we forget, Checo Perez full start, the transponders weren't working, and so too the FIA's race directors and stewards' eyes were not, because even a blind man could see what a full start looks like. Did he go before the lights went out? Then it's a full start. But no, because the transponders weren't working, the FIA couldn't tell. What happened to being open and honest? What happened to robust governance? The same thing happened with Lando and Norris a couple of cycles ago. Full start settings, but they couldn't tell because the transponders weren't working. Some say, therefore, that common sense in the FIA is none too common. And those are Exhibit A, B, C, D, E, and F, in the words of Ferrari and their words of wisdom. And now, for the avoidance of doubt, to set the scene, all F1 journos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others, are they not? Andrew Benson, Benny as they call him at the BBC, chief F1 editor, is one of the best, one straight shooter settings each and every single time, and he's come into contact with a document that lays out all of the proposals that Mohammed Ben Sulayem is intending to make and why. We'll get into it. Let's read through it. It's techier than techie things. I desperately don't want to come on here and narrate as if this is bedtime Storyville, but this one's bloody important if indeed you are an F1 fan and a fan of the sport being governed in a way which at the very least is set fair. Benson writes, FIA president proposes changes to the governing body, its very fabric, and this dude has been looking to do this for weeks now. That's why Richards and bloody Reed are not having it. You will recall, again, to set the table properly and fair, that Reed and Richards weren't allowed to go into a World Motorsport Council meeting. Why? Because they refused to sign a last-minute impromptu NDA, because at that meeting, Mohammed Ben Sulayem was going to start talking some very techie things, techier than techie. What was he on about? Well, commercial is not what they should be talking about here. This, again, they signed with the European Commission, promising that in order to do their job in a way that is true and is fair, to focus on the regulatory aspect of the sport, that necessitated that they don't throw their hat into any commercial arenas. Since then, early 2000s, Mohammed Ben Sulayem is desperately trying to get involved in the commercial arm of what? Rallycross. So too, not in the not too distant past, you'll recall Mohammed Ben Sulayem did one of these, saying that the F1 asset was valued too highly, so that his mates in the Middle East, sovereign wealth fund settings, could potentially get a better price and try to take over the great sport that is Formula One. Happy 75th birthday, by the way. At a price that was higher than they wished. What are we doing here, chat? I've never seen such agency. I mean, some say that greatness is in the agency of others. I would argue that Mohammed Ben Sulayem's agency is the greatest of agencies. He only cares about himself and his mates. But I digress. Andrew Benson of the BBC writes, FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem is proposing changes to the statutes of motorsport's governing body that appear to further extend his control. What are we doing? It's exactly what we need, isn't it, chat? A dictatorship in Formula One. Bring back Sean Todd, I hear you say. BBC Sport has seen a confidential document containing the proposed revisions, which are set to be voted on at a meeting of the FIA General Assembly next month. These bring forward the deadlines for candidates for December's presidential elections. I mean, there is no coincidence, therefore, as far as timing. You will recall over the past couple of weeks, Carlos Sainz has said he may well throw his hat into the arena, not to bash Mohammed Ben Sulayem and his multitudinous indiscretions, but because he feels passionate about the sport that is Formula One and wants to govern in a way that is commensurate and set bloody fair. Now all of a sudden Ben Sulayem's looking to move the goalpost, shift the bloody deadlines with a view to mitigate for the probability that somebody else can dethrone him as the incumbent. Give Ben Sulayem the possibility to bar any candidate from running against him and allow. Imagine, what are we talking about, chat? What is going on? Is this modern day sports, or is this authoritarianism epitomised? He's looking to bar any candidate from running against him and allow him more control over the membership of the FIA Senate. And here we go. Here's where you know Benson's shooting straight as per usual. No critic was prepared to comment on the record about the changes, as many are bound by non-disclosure agreements. What are we doing here? It makes no sense. Oh, the humanity, for real. NDAs across the board. Bloody Nora. But one said, most proposals aim at some sort of consolidation of power, more centralised control, and trying to eliminate independent checks and balances. Bloody Nora, chat. Do you see the hypocrisy in this? The FIA is the regulatory body looking to tick and tie, check everybody else's homework, make sure that the rules are instituted in a way that's fair and commensurate across all related parties, that they themselves don't want to have their homework checked. This makes perfect sense, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. It is nonsense, chat. I cannot, and I will not. Another said that the document containing the proposal was very cleverly written, that, quote, it's taking a very moral high ground, or it's appearing to, whereas the reality of it is probably less so. But Ben Sulayem was criticised last December for statute changes that were labelled a worrisome concentration of power. There, Andrew Benson is citing all of the disbanding of the audit committee. When you get rid of the audit committee, that tells you all you need to know. There is no greater signal of somebody's intent, if indeed they harbour aspirations to run an authoritarian organisation, than by getting rid of, disbanding 2 of 4 members of the audit committee. What are we doing, chat? Benson continues, the FIA have been approached by BBC for comment, but again, you're not going to get a response out from them anytime soon, Andrew Benson. You've scuppered all of MBS's plans. Go on then. Questions of integrity. The most controversial proposal is one that dictates there must not be anything in the record of the candidates standing for the elections as members of the presidential list that calls into question their professional integrity. You know where he's going with this, isn't he? Carlos Sainz Sr., Carlos Sainz Jr., conflict of interest settings, potentially. He doesn't want anyone to run against him. He's seeking to run unopposed in December and rule and reign as FIA president in perpetuity, is he not? Benson continues, according to the document of proposed statutes, the reason for adding this is that such an eligibility criterion is currently absent for behave yourself. Behave, continuous improvement. Is that what we're running on? Is that meant to be is that meant to be believable as a modus operandi, a motive even for these bloody changes? Behave yourself, MBS. Absent from the FIA statutes and internal regulations, it says that this should be in the requirements for a president. Well, you're lucky, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, that it wasn't in the statute when you were running, chat. The joke is, here's the irony here, and it would be remiss of me not to mention this. If Mohammed Ben Sulayem were running again, which he is in December 2025, surely he should not be able to because of these new stipulations. What are we talking about here? What conflict of interest? Susie Wolf, high tech. What are you on about? Like you've pushed through Cadillac as the 11th member. Why? Because your brother is CEO of DP World, of course, and he has links and a commercial relationship with General Motors. Again, the parent member, owner of the subsidiary that is Cadillac F1. So what are we talking about? What, we're talking about true and fair, acting in a way that's representative. What? No chance, mate. You, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, should be barred, therefore, from running if you're looking to add in these additional stipulations into the statute. But again, it will only apply for new members, right, or new presidents, potentially. It says that this should be in the requirements for the presidential campaign for the sake of consistency, because it already applies to candidates standing for a number of other FIA bodies, such as the F1 Cost Cap Committee and Audit. What audit committee? Don't exist, chap. Not proper. 2 of 4 members disbanded. What are you talking? Ethics Committee. Not even worth the paper on which it's written as a title. However, writes Benson, the list of presidential candidates and their teams, which are strictly defined, is monitored by the FIA's Nominations Committee. If it finds any ethical issues with a list, it would refer the matter to the FIA's Ethics Committee. And here's the clincher, chat. Here's where it gets techier than techie things. Both of them, their bodies, are controlled by FIA president and his allies following changes to the statutes made by Mohammed Ben Sulayem last year. You'll recall he ran on transparency, openness, robust governance. What is that then, chat? If he holds the red pen, carte blanche over both of those decision-making committees, then surely there is no... It's nonsense. Where is the democracy? I can't even do it. It just makes no sense. How is this transparency and robust governance? This is anything if not the opposite. Like, it just makes no bloody sense. In combination, continues Benson, with FIA's Code of Ethics, this could appear targeted at Carlos Sainz Sr., the rally legend who has already declared his interest in running for the presidency in December. The Code of Ethics dictates that parties of the FIA shall avoid any conflicts of... There you go, conflict of it. But how is he talking about conflict of interest? How, Sway? This makes sense for me, chat. How could those words even come out of Mohammed Ben Sulayem's mouth? By dint of the fact that he tried to intervene, apparently, in inverted commas, allegedly, that he tried to get bloody Fernando Plan Alonso promoted at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix back to the podium. What is he talking about? General Motors, Cadillac F1, leveraging an unfounded claim of a conflict of interest. It just makes no sense. The flipping cheek of the man to talk about shall avoid any conflicts of interest, but again, very clearly aimed at dismantling the campaign of Juan Carlos Sainz Sr. before it even gets off the ground. Sainz is the father of Ferrari Formula One driver Carlos Sainz, so it would be, in theory, easy for the ethics committee, should it be so minded, to declare that he has a conflict of interest. There you go. But Carlos Sainz, chat, has already said that he's prepared to step down now. Like, he's not going to be involved in Carlos Sainz Sr.'s relationship. He's his manager or something like that at the moment. Of course, they have a relationship. He's his father. But in order to run, Carlos Sainz Sr., a man of integrity, has said that he's prepared to step down. So what are we doing here, chat? I don't understand. It makes no sense. Here's your other change. Changes to the Senate composition. Ben Sulayem has also proposed... I know this is long, chat, but it's important, mate. It is important. Ben Sulayem has also proposed changes to the nomination of members of the Senate, the body that controls... He's just got his hands in all the pies. He's looking to control everything, isn't he? All roads, as far as decision-making, strategic and or managerial, run through Mohammed Ben Sulayem already, and he's only, by dint of these changes, looking to make it more so. The Senate consists of 16 members, 12 of which are defined in the statutes as representatives of the President, his team, and members of the 2 World Councils for Sport and Mobility. The final foot, mate, I can't even do it anymore. Ben Sulayem, look at this. Ben Sulayem is proposing that the President should appoint these final members with no oversight from the other Senate members. This is a dictatorship, chat. There are no other words for it. Dictatorship and authoritarianism are most apropos at this stage. However, the FIA statutes already contain Article 18.4, which appears to cover this. It allows the Senate to invite other members to join the study of specific questions. One source close to the situation said this was so clearly poor governance that the boldness is surprised. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. This chap's looking to run unencumbered, untrammeled by traditional governance, the robust sort of governance of which he speaks and ran on in 2021. Another said it's a convenient way of dressing up a way where I can potentially get rid of all these people when it suits me. Here we go. So Benson summarised it nicely for us. Changes to the ethics and other committees. Another change proposed that the 4-year term of office of members of the Audit, Ethics and Nominations Committee be brought in line with that of the President. Currently, I can't even do it, chat. I just can't. I'm throwing up in my mouth. Genuine, I just can't do it. I'm allergic. Changes to the Motorsport Council as well, or the World Motorsport Council, election timing too. So he's going to try and bring that forward again to try and ward off an onrushing Carlos Sainz Jr. And I've had enough, chat. I'm allergic. I know we're meant to go long today, but I'm reading that. I just can't. I beggars belief that this dude can be so shameless, so unabashed, be so authoritarian, so dictatorship-esque, untrammeled by the usual audit committee or audit members that he's since disbanded. This is nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. And I have a feeling that there's other things in tow in the background. There are a couple of things. Let me talk about 2 of 3 potentially. You'll have to connect the dots here because there's only so much I can say. Top secret settings, X-Files settings. In the first circumstance, we've already touched on Ollie Oakes, who is taking the FIA to court. That's already happening. But the second leg of the arbitration is in tow if word on the F1 curb is something in which you can be invested. In the second instance, Susie Wolff, on the back of her unfounded allegations, or the unfounded allegations, baseless, levelled against her by the FIA, that she was funneling information that she shouldn't have been to one Toto, the boy who cried wolf. Susie said, you know what, I'm not having this. What do you think this is? You're not going to defame and slander my character. So she took him and them to French court. That is ongoing. Criminal charges. How very dare you talk about Susie Wolff like this? It's nonsense. You better have some serious evidence if you're going to make some serious claims. Sagan standard, some say. There is a third unwanted entrant, however, that could potentially be of much more consequence. The Ollie Oakes thing is happening, but imagine that, I don't know, Mohammed Ben Sulayem was somehow linked to that, and I'm hypothesizing massively here, but just imagine that somehow you could link those 2 dots, apophenia, causation, dot correlation, one does not necessarily beget the other, then that would be a scandal bigger than anything even Mohammed Ben Sulayem and his authoritarian regime could bear the burden of, could handle, and come out the back of smelling of roses. Chat is going to get techier than techie things, and it kills me to have to talk about this on the day of F1's 75th anniversary proper. Back in 1950, the first F1 race proper was won by one Nino Farina at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, and instead of celebrating that and all that's come since, all of the endeavours of the drivers, the brilliance of the race engineers and aerodynamic ones, all of the fantastic moments that Formula One as a sporting endeavour, chariots of fire risking their lives and limbs each and every single time, has given to us as a community, as a fan base. Instead of talking about that, here we are yet again talking about the multitudinous indiscretions of the FIA president, none other than Mohammed Ben Sulayem. What are we doing here, chat? This is unacceptable. I and you and we shouldn't stand for it, nor should we tolerate it. The sport is better than that. It deserves better. We deserve better. Vamos, Carlitos Sainz Sr. I think we need that chap more than ever, notwithstanding the multitudinous endeavours of Mohammed Ben Sulayem, as at the time of writing, to sabotage that dude's campaign to become the next FIA president. chat. What are we doing? Yeah.